Hello and welcome to In the Court of the Wenton King. We're in our second stage of soft machining and we're doing fifth. It's that one there, that one. Not that one, that one. That one there. Okay. I think the fact that you've got fourth and fifth on one disc is relevant to the discussion. But yeah, I've had third and bundles, which we're going to do next week, for years and years and years. So I haven't bought any soft machining other than that for a long time. I'd heard one and two and So I bought this just a couple of weeks ago because it felt like this needed to be a 3-album run to show the process of what's happened. And we were right to do that because all 3 albums are completely different. But I was disappointed. It isn't a prog album at all. It's from my perspective, certainly I'm sure from our perspective. Unless you're a real, one of these jazz purists, it's only Louis Armstrong is the only jazz. It is jazz. It's not prog at all. And obviously I like jazz. I've got lots of jazz albums, but you compare this to the classics of Coltrane or whatever, and Miles Davis, and you compare it to some of the modern stuff I listen to. It doesn't really compare. Compare it to Earthworks. I mean, these are a rock band doing this kind of thing, so that's relevant. And particularly Earthworks Mark 2 and 3. This doesn't even come close to that. There's nice bits. There's boring bits. So it isn't a bad album by any means, but it is a mediocre album from my perspective. I've got a lot of it isn't even fusion. Some of it is definitely fusion. Some of it, for me, isn't fusion. It's just jazz. Bebop, modal kind of stuff. And there is some nasty electrical, and particularly track 2, which is more electric and fusiony. And it's quite jarring, but other than that, most of it is actually texturally familiar and easygoing, in that it just sounds like jazz. It's also another album Sam isn't going to like. Had I known it was going to be like this, we wouldn't have reviewed it.
You say that, Kev. I by no means love this album, but I could listen to it, and I did listen to it several times. For a start, it's not like 10 hours long, or whatever the last one.
Which helps.
Helps. So technically, the last one was a double album.
It was a double, yeah.
So we're actually doing four albums of Soft Machine. A very jazz noodly with kind of weird experimental stuff at the beginning of some songs.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't dislike that jazz as much as I thought. I thought it was quite alright. I could listen to this. Mm-hmm. It's not sort of weighing down on me. I'm like, oh God, I just want to turn this off. So on that score, I think this is a great improvement on the last album. I'll probably agree with you though, it's mediocre.
Yeah, and it was in the comments were interesting last week actually. We didn't know what to talk about this, but in that it was very Marmite, and I didn't expect that. A lot of people agree with you, even though third is a famous album. Normally it's like how dare you kind of question. It was very much one or the other. There was a bit of people on the fence as well, but there was someone who likes the Robert Wyatt vocals and thinks it's beautiful. And there were people who I agree it sounds horrible. So that was interesting. But this is much more generic. There's a bit of experimentation there. I think, to be honest, the experimentation bits are probably the worst bits. As if 8 minutes of the most fusiony stuff. Bits of it kind of sound like Bitch's Brew, but not much happens. It's just 8 minutes of on the saxophone, and it's really boring. And there's a drum solo as well. So, to be honest, I kind of skipped the middle 2 tracks. Controversial. And there's actually 2 halves of this album because they got a new drummer. Robert Wyatt left. Musical differences. They wanted to do this much more middle of the road jazz type stuff. They probably saw the money in that, I suspect, which was probably an error. But you've got a different drummer on side 1, different drummer on side 2. Generally, people seem to prefer the first side, and I don't. I prefer my favourite bits are the last 2 tracks actually, which I think are great. But it is basically Soft Machine the solos. It's almost like they've given up making albums and they just do touring, and they've recorded the middle section of each of this new, this particular performance, this version of this song that they've arranged and given it a name, arbitrary name, and there's a drum solo, and it is just a drum solo.
I don't mind the experimentation bits. They're not fantastic or anything like that, but if they weren't there, it would literally be some jazzing around.
Yes.
Which would be monumentally boring.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of it is modal. I said this last week, but there's a difference in that. Last week the type of modal, it was just 1 or 2 chords and then just improvising over it. It still had a groove, a very rock feel. That's gone now. The playing is much more jazz oriented, and when they're doing that, the whole point of modal jazz, I'm sure I said this last week, but it's to avoid cliche, because obviously what happened with jazz musicians, they get so perfect at all their modal skills and their chord progression skills that all they do is they end up having licks that they do for this. Or when you go from this chord to this chord, I can do this, and it's impossible for musicians to start not fall into that. So with modal, the idea is that you're free. You can find a whole new vocabulary. Because musicians are lazy, really. That's what it is. But that's not really here, because this kind of is cliche. It isn't all like that. I really like Pigling Bland, which is a proper bit of bebop arranged stuff, which is really cool. It's not all like that. The thing about that freedom of being able to just play, freedom equals fear, and it's kind of maybe unique to that style of music that you've got the rhythm section. I've got it really easy most of the time. When there's not the arranged stuff, they can just do their thing. But all the attention and all the pressure is on the lead players, who have got to show modal invention, and any holes in their technique will be in your face. So that type of music is interesting like that, in that there's no pressure on the rhythm section, there's huge pressure on the lead section. But I prefer the unison bits anyway. Is that it?
I think so, I can't see.
So there won't be much to say. It's some jazz.
How have we come to these as a prog thing?
Because they started off a prog band, and they end up being a prog band as well, I think. They were jazz in the middle.
So this is the awkward middle phase, when they think they want to be jazzos.
Yeah. Or interpreting what fusion is in a different way, maybe. I tried to read a lot of reviews because there wasn't much to say. I wanted to see what people were saying, and the real consensus is this was a slow move towards fusion. But I listened to Fourth, which I haven't been listening to because we only had this for a couple of weeks. I've been listening to Fifth because we were reviewing. It's much better. Straight away. There's all cool range stuff. There's great stuff on it, but I sense that either they had to make an album, or they just weren't ready to make an album, or they're just giving up making albums, and they just recorded some concerts and put it on an album, made up random titles for the songs.
I think if you release an album like that, it's very dangerous. For example, I've got some improv piano, Keith Jarrett, very good. But you know what you're getting into there. You know it's improv, and you develop a way to listen to it, which is to tune out the boring bits.
Yeah.
And pick up the interesting bits and suddenly tune back in.
Well, that's the nature of improvisation.
Yeah. Whereas this, because I presume it's not supposed to be improv, there's going to be an element of disappointment there.
Yes. Well, the question is it jamming? Is it improvisation? And most of it is jamming because they're just playing stuff. Really, some of it is improvisation because they're coming up with new noises or whatever. But a lot of it is jamming. But I think the point is really, Keith Jarrett is really at a much higher level.
Well, yeah, of course.
Than this stuff, and they're limited by their musicianship. Whilst they're really good musicians to be able to play that, jazz is the highest of all, obviously, and that means it shows up their limitations. You compare it to Earthworks Mark II even, and you can hear that it's great, but they aren't on that level. Which you wouldn't if they were doing proggy stuff. You probably wouldn't notice because they've arranged cool stuff to happen and whatever. So it is the naked musicians.
I sometimes get the sense that a lot of progsters really want to be jazzos.
That's certainly a Canterbury thing.
Yeah.
I assume that's why Robert Wyatt left. He was a proggy, psychedelic. He wants to do that stuff, but the experimental stuff and try things, and they don't work well. Put it out anyway. And I get the impression it's actually the keyboard player and the sax player are very serious musicians, and they want to play their jazz. You have to remember on the previous album, Robert Wyatt's ridiculous song thing. He recorded most of it himself because they wouldn't play on it. So, it shows how So yeah, that's it really.
Nice.
Nice.
How many eggs are you going to give it?
It is 3 eggs because it's not bad. It is an average album. You have to remember, most of the albums we do, we pick the ones we like, which is why 4 comes out as average because we pick good ones. Generally, you're not going to pick awful ones unless it's a comedy episode. So it's 3 eggs because I enjoyed listening to it and it was on.
Yeah, I agree.
Some of the reviews describe it as being quite sort of dark and a bit soulless, a bit empty maybe, but possibly.
There is a dark tinge to it, and it creeps in right at the beginning, which is good.
Yeah. I didn't talk about Bone actually. Bone is a good track as well. There's some more interesting sounds on there, which is more of a proggy thing. That's it. Sorry. Told you there wouldn't be much to say. Never mind. It's fine. Join us next week for an album that Sam will like, I think. Possibly.
We'll see, won't we?
We will see. With bundles. Bundles. Everyone that knows it will know why we're doing that album. They'll know. See you next week.